All right, that was a lot shorter than I thought it would be, so I still have to get this stuff over here. Hey everybody, I'm over here, but I'm happy to be here. Are you happy to be over there? Yeah! All right, well, I'm getting my odds and ends and random things together. Open your Bibles to Luke chapter 10. Luke chapter 10 is where we're going to be spending our time tonight, towards the end of that. But man, I just love that we're back. Christmas break is awesome. Y'all know that I love Christmas. But it's just good to be back. Joanna and I were talking with one of our high school seniors yesterday, and they sent us a follow-up text that was really sweet and encouraging, but it was just like, this is our last first FSM. It's like, it is for you seniors, like class of 2020. This is your last first FSM of the semester, which I know is like or maybe for you, you're like, finally, that's fine. That's between you and the Lord. But summer's gonna be here before you know it. Like, I know that you think that and it is, the grind of spring is real, but summer is gonna be here before you know it. Like, you are going to wake up one morning and all of a sudden be like, what happened to February, March, April, and May? And I know especially for you seniors, you're like, that's literally what I've been praying every morning. How did you know? Like, I need to wake up and it be end of May. But the countdown's begun, right? Like, the countdown to summer has already started. The countdown to Christmas is over and now it's reset a little bit. Some of you are like, no man, MLK Day, I just need like one day off. Like, that I will count down to like the next time a class like is a study hall instead. But really the summer countdown to lake trips, vacation, paychecks from work, not doing school, like all of the very important things about summer is on its way, and the countdown has begun. Some of you, I have maybe not seen that you have an actual like countdown on your home screen ready for summer, and I get it. And so what we want to do in this series between now and Winter Chill, just in case anybody's excited about Winter Chill, deadline's Friday. Between now and Winter Chill, we're going to go through this series we're calling Summer Vibes with this idea of what if your summer and the vibe of your entire experience of the summer, what if God wants to do something in the countdown that is going to change the way that your summer experience is? What if your summer experience and all of the good, the bad, and the ugly, what if that is different because of what God does in your life during the countdown? So this semester, what are the things that maybe we think that God could do in and through you as we start this new year, 2020, that would change the summer, but also maybe change your future? Because here's the thing. As much as this semester is going to go really fast, the thing that I keep coming back to, and the thing that our staff keeps hearing, and the thing that we keep talking with your parents about, the thing that we keep talking to like teachers, administration about, y'all are just busy. Like, y'all are busy people. Anybody here feel like, yes, I'm a little busy just in life in general? Here's the thing. It's true. I'm not trying to make light of like, oh, teenagers think they're a bit like, y'all, it's crazy. It doesn't make sense. I almost did an illustration of like trying to spin plates and stuff of like, you're trying to keep these plates spinning and then someone's gonna punch you in the gut and you still gotta keep this spinning and then there's another plate and then there's a ball coming out of left field. But I don't know how to spin plates and that's very bad for y'all if I try and do that. So I just decided not to try and learn this week. But y'all are busy and it's really easy to coast through stuff and just pretend that that's just the way that life is. And so even this past Tuesday, I put a sticker on my Instagram feed and just said, hey, what are the things that like make you feel busy? What are the things that you give your time to? And I got a whole bunch of responses. And so what I did was just kind of put them all and brought them all together because there weren't a whole lot of them that were super out of the ordinary. There's a lot of themes going on. School was a big one that came up time and time again. Work, papers, writing papers. Somebody just said writing. I don't know if that's for your own like benefit. You're writing a book. If that's so, awesome. Social media was a lot, whether that was Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. Somebody said reading blogs. We'll count that as social media. Practice came up a lot. There was band practice, choir practice, basketball practice, football practice, swim practice, like all kinds of practice. Friends came up a whole lot. Video games came up a whole lot. Work came up less than it should have. Netflix came up a whole lot. Boyfriend, girlfriend also probably came up a few more times than I would probably like for it to have, but it's real. Scholarship applications a few times, proud of you, doing the work. FSM came up once, so I put it on there. And then sleep came up a whole lot. Here's the thing, y'all are busy. Like, looking at that piece of paper, that makes me stressed. That makes me freak out, even like, and I don't have your life. And I'm looking at them like, how do you find time for all of those things? How do you get all of those things done? And some of you are like, well, I don't do the bottom one. Sleep just doesn't happen in my life. That's not my story. And I think that that's really the way for a lot of you that you just kind of function. And so as I was looking through that, I started thinking like, are our students, because I think that y'all are probably a picture of students in general, I don't think like we're the only like city in America where people are busy with work, school, practice, Netflix, and relationships. Like I don't think that that's a weird thing, but looking at this, some of these are really, really good things. Like school, whether you like it or not, whether you're good at it or not, school is a good thing. Work, I think, is a good thing. Friends, relationships are a good thing. Actually, doing the work that the school sends you home is a good thing. Sleep is a really, really good thing. It's not that you're busy doing terrible things. And in fact, some of them are good, some of them are neutral. Like Netflix, I would say, is neutral. Probably not like pointing you towards the greater good of humanity, but it's not like bad. Even when you look at boyfriends and girlfriends, having a significant other in high school is not a bad thing or a good thing. It's a neutral thing that can be used one way or another. FSM, that can be a neutral thing. If you show up and you don't pay attention and you like kick your friends, that's not a great thing. But we're so stressed, we're so busy, and it's with good things and neutral things. Like nobody on my Instagram sticker said, I'm just so busy cooking so much heroin. Like that wasn't what anybody said. And if you are and you just didn't want to tell your youth pastor that you're like making bank selling drugs and destroying our community, I get that. But we're not busy with bad things. Busyness is a lot easier to treat when we're busy with bad things, but we're not. We're busy with good things. We're busy with neutral things. We're not like filling our time with these like terrible, objectively bad things. And so I tried to think, was my life like that? And so I basically like used a little random generator thing and picked one semester of my high school career. And the semester that came out was my sophomore year fall semester. And so here's kind of my typical weekly rhythm. Any sophomores in here? Any sophomores still in their fall semester? Means you failed a class. I'm just gonna put your hands down. Here was my fall semester, sophomore year. Sundays, I went to church. I volunteered running the camera, fell asleep half the weeks, but they still let me keep doing it. We got out of church around 12:30, and then I went to work till 7. We lived in a city called South Haven, Mississippi, and if any of you play competitive travel baseball, you've probably played at Snowden Grove Park. I worked there. Worked there till 6 or 7 on Sundays. School days, a typical school day that semester was at the school by 5:30 for a workout. And then 7 o'clock, I had a Latin class because I wanted to get out of my Spanish class because she was the devil. And the only way that they let us do that, it was bad enough they came in like, anybody that wants to come to school at 7 and start Latin in the middle of the semester, you can. And 9 of us were like, I'm in. Like, let's do this. And then classes all day, practice, run by Sonic on the way home, do homework, fall asleep. On Wednesdays, our coach would let us off at 4:30. My youth group met in a high school gym in another city, and so I was usually there by 4:15, 4:45, depending on practice let-out time, help set up the projector, the speakers, the games, all of that stuff. Home by 10, doing homework. Fridays was game day. Saturdays, I would work either from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. or from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. at the ballpark, and then start it all over. And that's busy. Like, that is stressful. And here are the things that I didn't mention that y'all have in your life. I didn't have as many papers. I genuinely did not have a difficult school. Like, I did really well in school, but they did not make it hard for us to do that. I didn't play multiple sports. I wasn't dating anybody. I did not have a cell phone. I didn't have social media. There were no streaming services. I didn't play video games. I hung out with my friends because at that point, some of them weren't driving. We maybe hung out once a month. There just wasn't a lot. It was school, football, work, church, sleep when you can, and Sonic. That was pretty much life. And here's what that felt like. That felt like, and I've got this little mason jar here that I hope I didn't just stain because it's for sure just like from my house. So we got this mason jar, and the bucket it's in is not important other than the fact that I didn't want to stain the stage with food coloring, and if I used water, you wouldn't see it, so it's a whole thing. So here's what this feels like, and maybe y'all can relate. My sophomore year, as I read that, it feels like this is kind of where I'm at. I'm holding all of it. Everything's fine. I'm doing all of the things that I need to be doing, but you got to focus a whole lot on making sure that doesn't spill. I was at my capacity. See, even just some like reverberations around me causes that to shake and spill over a little bit, and I didn't have nearly the amount of stuff that y'all had in your life. I was filled to the brim. I was stressed that things would fall apart. I knew that I couldn't handle anything else, and I just thought that was the way that it was. And I feel like this is probably, if I had to put a picture towards the way that I hear a lot of our students speak about life, it's this idea of like, man, it's the surface tension that's keeping me together. Like one more drop and this whole thing's coming to the ground. And here's the bad news. It doesn't get better. I would love to tell you, like, you get out of high school and you've got so much free time and it's awesome and there's all this stuff and you'll have so many activities and friends and hobbies and things to do and it's great and you'll sleep. Life doesn't care. Like, you're gonna get to college and life won't care that you're in college. There's gonna be more stuff. For those of you that maybe are going military or workforce, or those of you that when you get out of college, life doesn't care that you're in the real world. It's not like life says, okay, well, here's 3 more courts that you can hold. Life doesn't care when you settle down and buy a house. Like, life does not care about what you have. Life is going to continue to challenge you to fill it to the brim. Some of that is our culture. Some of that is our society, our surroundings, our wirings. But life doesn't really give you a chance to relax. The good news is this is not a new tension. This is not a new struggle or anything like that. This push to fill up our capacity. In Luke chapter 10, Jesus and the disciples are walking around, and we see in Luke 10:38, it says, as Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. So Jesus was a rabbi, this Jewish teacher who would go city to city and spread his interpretation of the scriptures. And we would say it's very different than the rest because, we would say he's the Son of God. So he goes to Jerusalem and he finds this lady named Martha, and Martha welcomes him into their house. Now, this is really, 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 really important. Because what happens, especially in their day, if you welcome someone into your house, you are immediately responsible for making sure that they have a good experience. You're responsible for providing for them. You're responsible for keeping them safe. You're responsible for feeding them, for giving them a place to sleep. When you welcome someone into your home, what you are doing is saying, I will take care of you. Now, here's the interesting part. Listen, eyes up here. This is so important. At the beginning of Luke chapter 10, the same chapter that we're in right now, Jesus sends out 72 of his followers and says, go and tell everybody about the message of the kingdom. And when you meet people and they welcome you into their home, that's a good thing. So this thing that Martha does for Jesus is a thing that a few verses before, Jesus has told his followers, this is important. This is how it works. This is a priority. This is good. Martha just drew the lucky stick and said, oh, the person that you're going to be hosting is Jesus. Not just one of his followers, but him. She was doing the thing that he said to do. And then we see in verse 39, her sister, Martha's sister Mary, sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he taught. I want to leave that verse up there because the language that Luke uses in our nerd moment of the night is really important. It says she sat at the Lord's feet. Everybody say sat. I'm not going to make you say the Greek word. The language that Luke gives in this passage is not this idea of just hanging out. It is an intentional posture that is only used in situations of honoring and recognizing authority. And so the fact that Mary sat at the feet of Jesus is not just she was hiding from Martha. It was she was sitting at the feet of Jesus, recognizing that he had the authority in that situation. It was a posture of honor, a posture of respect, and a posture of submission. And then listening to what he taught. Again, the very intentional language, because Luke doesn't use it a whole lot of places, is this image of absorbing what he said, not just like in one ear and out the other, as some of y'all in here like this very minute are doing. I get it. But she was sitting at the feet of Jesus, recognizing his authority, absorbing the things that he was teaching. And that's super important for how we see the next verse play out. But the problem, before we look at verse 40, is that she was not there to sit at the feet of Jesus and listen to what he said. The reason she was there was one of the most honored guests that Martha would ever have in her home was there, and she needed help. She was supposed to be there to help out her sister. She was supposed to be there to help host Jesus and whoever came into their home with him. But then we see in verse, 40? But Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. She came to Jesus and she said, Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits here while I do all the work? Tell her to come help me. So she's got this huge dinner, this huge thing that she's preparing. Her sister's supposed to be helping. How many of y'all have ever had a sibling who was less than helpful with chores, right? Some of y'all are sitting next to your sibling and like, you're like, this one, pick them. It's not like that. But it's frustrating. I've got two little sisters, and I was the sibling who was never helpful. So I've seen in their faces how frustrating that must have been to have a not helpful sibling. So she's trying to prepare, she's trying to host. Again, this is the thing that Jesus said was good. This is the thing that we've already heard is a priority. It's her obligation. It's her responsibility. It's what she's supposed to do to honor their guest, Jesus. And she comes in and just kind of passive aggressively, like, again, imagine Jesus kind of probably laying on his side a little bit, Mary sitting at his feet in a place of honor. So it's not like Mary's in the other room and Martha comes up and goes, Jesus, don't you just think that it's frustrating that some people are pretty lazy and that some people don't do the things that they're supposed to be doing? Instead, they just don't do those things. The worst kinds of, like, it's super catty, y'all. Like, this is mean. This is older sister bullying. Like, this is not, she is calling her out in front of Jesus, thinking that she's in the right because, again, she's doing the right thing. And here's the thing. I think Martha gets a bad rap. I think when we hear messages on this passage, because this is not some obscure passage, many of you in here, if you've grown up in church, you've probably heard this story. Martha gets a really bad rap for being the one that was too busy, being the one that was too preoccupied, being the one that was not prioritizing Jesus in her life. But here's the thing. She was just doing what she was supposed to do. She was being obedient. She was being honoring. I would also argue her actions were worshipful, but her heart wasn't. She was stressed. Jesus even said, or the passage even says she's so preoccupied by the things that were going. Her life was to the brim. And here's the thing, students, when your life is like this, all you focus on is the things that are the most pressing and hoping that nothing else comes into this. You don't focus on anything around you. You don't focus on anything happening in your life. All you focus on when this is your life, when you are filled to the capacity, is the fear of something being added on and the fear of something falling away. That is it. You are so stressed because you can't focus on anything. It's almost as if you could be walking up to the edge of the Grand Canyon with the greatest view, the most awe-inspiring, wonder-inducing view, and all you can look at is the surface of this because this is your highest priority. I think that's a little bit of how Martha felt. I think that's a little bit of how, I don't know about you, how I feel in life. And if I'm being totally honest, I didn't finish, let's see, what time is it right now? I did not finish writing this message until an hour and a half ago because I was so busy. Like I was so stressed this week, I didn't have time to write. And then when I was telling Cameron at the Benton campus, he was like, hey, how's sermon prep going? I was like, I'm about to start. I'm a little stressed out, freaking out, too busy. He's like, what are you preaching on again tonight? I was like, well, about that. The Bible somewhere, don't worry about it. So this is not me saying, you shouldn't live life like this. This is me saying, this is exhausting. This is not a way to live life. There's no room for error. As I was doing my sermon prep for this week earlier before I was writing, and I started looking at some studies of how stress interacts with the teenage brain in particular. And here is a little bit terrifying, but here's a study out of Columbia that I found kind of interesting, and I'll just summarize kind of what it was talking about. 3 important things that they found in this study. The adolescent or teenage brain is more responsive to stress hormones. Like stress hormones within your brain when you're in adolescence, when you're a teenager, those stress hormones are more potent and your brain is more responsive to that. The parts of your brain that process stress are at a heightened level of activity during this season of your life. So not only is like the little drop like way more potent to your brain, that part of your brain is also like way super hyperactive. And then, depending on kind of growth, development, age, gender, all of that stuff, your brain is also in the biggest maturing process that you will experience in your entire life. So many things are changing, so many things are shifting, so many things are solidified, which means your brain is very, what neurologists call malleable. It's very susceptible. It's very impressionable. And so they said, when you combine these factors, the study shows a high connection with teenagers who have experienced ongoing stress as a teenager. The way that impacts your brain leads to ongoing issues with your ability to adapt to stress as an adult. So what that means is, if you experience a lot of stress right now in your life, it will likely be more difficult for you to process that stress as an adult. Now, the really crummy part of that is I'm telling a room full of teenagers, if you're stressed right now, it's gonna be worse when you're older, which makes you more stressed right now, which is gonna make it worse when you're older, which makes you more stressed. Like I get the circular like cycle of doom and hopelessness that puts you in, but that's why this is such a big deal. Because if this is your life, if this full jar is your life right now, you're not only missing out on what your life could be in general, you are also missing out and setting yourself up for difficulty as an adult. This passage finishes verse 41. The Lord said to her, "My dear Martha." In the original language, it's "dear, dear Martha," this term of affection. Now remember, he's about to, or if you didn't know, he's about to criticize Martha and tell her that she's wrong for calling out her sister like that. But Jesus doesn't use a term of judgment or frustration or anger. When Jesus is talking with this overstressed, to the limit lady, he uses grace and affection. We'll come back to that, and that's important. But he says, "My dear Martha, you were worried and upset over all these details." Verse 42. There's only one thing worth being concerned about, and Mary's discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her. He says, you're focusing on good things, Martha. But Mary's focused on ultimate things. She is focused on something that will never be taken away from her. You're worried about these things that are important, these things that Jesus just said verses before were vital. But when you look at it, Mary is the one that was sitting at the feet of Jesus doing what she could only do in that moment. And students, if I had to boil down this idea of busyness and the trap that it has in our hearts, it would be this idea that busyness takes root when we let good things become ultimate things. When we let these things in our life that monopolize so much of our time move from being good things to being things we see as ultimate things. And that's when we start focusing on not overflowing, not spilling, not anything else. Because here's the thing. If this is my life, And I want to be really, really honest. If this is my life, and a lot of times, and in this season right now, this feels like my life. But if this is me, and Jesus comes to me and says, Austin, I want to do an incredible work in you. I want to do an incredible work through you. I want to use you to change the direction of your neighborhood, the direction of your family, the direction of your life, the direction of your church, the direction of FSM. I need you. I want to use you. I want to work through you. What's he supposed to do? How is this going to work? I've not given him space. If this list of things over here on the whiteboard is a true description of your life, or this sticky note thing, if this is you, if Jesus comes and he has this pen and says, listen, I've got something huge that will change your life forever, that will spark a revival in your school, that will change the future of your family, that will impact everything around you, but you haven't given me any room. How ridiculous is it of me to wonder why God doesn't work in my life when I have not given him any space to move? How arrogant am I to be frustrated that Jesus hasn't come into my life and radically changed me or given me a hunger for him if I've not given him any space in anything that I'm doing? Jesus comes to this page, there's not any margin. There's not any leeway. There's not any flexibility. If Jesus adds any water to this and comes in and says, I have even a small thing that I'm going to do in you, things start to fall apart. Things get messy because we haven't given him the margin. So here's the solution. I think instead of this being what our life looks like, and I'm not saying get rid of school, so please don't go home. What was FSM about? I'm done with school. That's not what we're saying. I'm saying we have to have some discipline and set some limits, some boundaries in our life, which may look like here, I'm going to fill my life here, and I'm going to leave the rest of this empty. I'm not even going to read the Bible or go to church or serve the needy. I'm going to leave this blank. But the problem is, if this is what we move to, our old list doesn't fit there. Our old list isn't going to just map onto this. We're going to have to make some things less of a priority. We're going to have to take some things off. We're going to have to rearrange our life and do some hard work so that the things that we're doing fit here, so that we have the margin to rest, the margin to be healthy, and the margin to say, okay, Jesus, please, what is it that you have for me? Because I have arranged my life to be ready and willing for you to move. And here's what you'll find when you set limits in your life, and this, again, is me preaching to myself as much as it is to anything else. This is a lot easier to carry around. This is not stressful. I don't have to focus only on the things that I'm about. If I'm walking around talking with people holding that jar, I can't engage in with anyone else. I can't learn about anyone else. I can't serve anyone else. I can't talk to anyone else because I'm so focused on myself. But with this, man, I could go all night. I could talk with every single one of you and not worry about ruining my own life because I have set limits to what I'm going to do. And it breaks my heart the number of times that we see students time and time again hit empty semester after semester after semester because they're so focused on the full jar. And I get it. This is really difficult. This is a really hard shift. And I think it's going to take two things: big decisions and regular practices. It's going to take big decisions and regular practices. Big decisions for me, when I shared my sophomore year of school and you all heard what all was involved in my life, when I moved from Mississippi to Benton, Arkansas, I just quit football. And many of you know my story and have heard more details of that. I was not in any danger of glorifying the Lord by going pro in football. That was not in the cards at all. I was not even glorifying the Lord a whole lot playing high school football because I was on the sidelines a lot for high school. I was glorifying the Lord cheering for my friends and being a scout team. So I made the big decision to get that out of my life so that I could have this margin right here. And I didn't fill it in with anything else. I made that big choice. So I'm not telling you need to go home and like I said, quit school or quit sports or break up with your significant other or like never open up Netflix again for the rest of your life. But maybe that's what you have to do. I can't say that for you, but if there's a big decision in your life that needs to happen, that's between you, your family, the Lord. But if you're tired of this, sometimes you just got to dump some of it out instead of hoping that it's going to evaporate over time. The other thing is regular practices. Another way to say this would be to have disciplines in your life. There's a guy named Dave Ramsey who says disciplines are acting now based on what you want later. But I like the way John Mark Comer says it, and we'll put it on the screen even. He says, disciplines are the things I do by direct effort that eventually let me do that which I cannot currently do. And we're gonna leave that up there because it's confusing. But what he's saying is, disciplines in my life are things I have to work at. They're things that are tough, that don't come naturally to me because I want those things to come naturally to me one day. And so for those of you that are musically inclined, if there's a particular piece that you want to be able to just play, only certain people can just like hear it and be like, let's roll, let's do this. For a lot of people, you've got to learn the music. You've got to go through the disciplines of practicing, of hearing it, of judging whether or not you're hitting the right notes, of going through repetitions. It takes that commitment, that intentional, direct effort to do those things so that one day you can just sit down with your instrument and play. For those of you that want to, let's say, get stronger, like build muscle, you may not be able to just go pick up a 55-pound dumbbell and just rep out some curls. Some of you might be able to, some of you might not. But if that's your goal, if that's what you want to be able to do, you've got to do by direct effort, intentional straining over time, what you want to eventually be able to just do without any effort at all. In our spiritual life, in our holistic life, sometimes we need these big decisions, but other times we need some regular habits in our life that are hard, that are difficult, that take effort, not because we love the effort, but because it's who we want to be. And so for some of you, this margin that we need to build may be as simple as setting 5 minutes aside every day and just being still. Not looking at your phone, not listening to music, not reading the Bible, just being still. If you're wired like me, that is incredibly difficult. But if you want to build margin, if you want to build rest in your life, if you want to quit being so stressed and live a life that is full but free, you may have to put some of those disciplines in place. As the band comes up and we close tonight, here's what I would say. We have to get to a place, students, where your life is not dictated by the surface tension of the water you're holding. We have to get to a place. You have to get to a place where you are just not so overwhelmed by trying to make sure that your life doesn't fall apart. Because I really do believe for a lot of you in here, especially some of you I have known since you were 4 years old. I was thinking about that earlier this week. I've known some of you a long time. And I see God moving in you, and I see potential in you, and I see this hope that could change this city. But if you're not willing to make decisions that give margin so that you can be the person God's called you to be and not the stress ball mason jar that's going to spill over everybody, I don't know. I just know I would hate to get to the end of my time on earth and be face to face with the Lord with my list of things that I had done and say, Jesus, aren't you proud of all of the stuff I did? And have him say, yes, but here are all the things that I was wanting to do. If you would have just asked, if you would have just stopped, if you would have just given me space in your life. So my hope for this year, and I know for some of you, if this is your first time, this may be a weird one of like, okay, so I guess we just quit things, like, let's talk. But my hope is that we would be creating the space instead of allowing the stress. This could be hard. I want to read this passage over you. It's just a verse. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask that y'all would stand. We're going to bring the house lights down. And I want to read this, and then we're going to go into a time of worship. This is out of a translation called The Message. And it is my prayer. It is what I've been praying for you this week. So if you just bow your heads and open your ears, open your hearts, and just hear this, the words of Jesus and his hope and his call to you. Come to me, all that are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart. And in me, you will find rest for your souls. Lord, that is my prayer for our students tonight. That you would just develop the space in our lives and in our priorities so that we could see you more clearly, that we could experience you more fully, and that we could pursue you more wholly with the entirety of who we are, that we would pour ourselves out before you and say, God, not even the margins, take all of it, whatever it is that you have for me, I am yours. That's our prayer tonight. We love you, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen.